Hello and welcome to Bombs Away, a Minnesota Twins podcast. I'm CJ Baumgartner, and whoa, the Minnesota Twins have all of a sudden won 4 games in a row, and they have the second best record in baseball behind the historic Tampa Bay Rays, who just lost their first game tonight. They're 13-1 on the season, tying the Major League Baseball record. But right behind them, the Minnesota Twins, who now sit at 10-4 on the season. Bombs Away, a Minnesota Twins podcast. I'm your host, CJ Baumgartner. You can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Also follow at Bombs Away Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I've been starting to do a couple of these post-game wrap-ups and just a couple takeaways that I have since I'm already on my phone watching the game. And, I think with the last game against the Yankees, where the Twins all of a sudden belted out 9 runs in the first inning. You looked at that and you said, okay, the Twins offense, they can break out in games like this. You saw it against the Marlins when they scored 11 runs in the first game of the series and then followed up by not scoring a run until they went back home. So, there's always a little bit of that with the Twins, and they did this a lot in 2022, where they would have one really good offensive game and then follow it up by scoring 1 or 2 runs the next game and losing 5-2 or 4-2. Or the point is, as much grief as we gave the pitching staff last year, and deservedly so, and for as good as this Twins lineup was as a whole in 2022, and you looked at their overall run production, they were top 10. You looked at their home runs, they were top 10 in baseball last year, but it'd be kind of streaky. And especially with the run differential the Twins had, the reason that run differential was so bad last year, I think they finished with a +12, which was the lowest out of any team that had a positive run differential. But that was the thing with the Twins all the time last year. They were in first place with a negative run differential. And now and that kind of was because of inconsistent offense, not equally, but almost as much as the bad pitching. Because when you have a team that scores 11 runs, and then you score 1 the next 2 games, well, now you've scored 13 runs over 3 games, and that makes it look a lot less potent as an offense in terms of runs per game. So good job for the Twins, for the bats to wake up and win this game. My 3 takeaways, if you go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever, YouTube, you hear me talking about this. In this takeaway, Louis Varland did a really good job. Now gave up back-to-back home runs to start the game, and you thought, oh boy, here we go. The Yankees are taking their revenge, back to regularly scheduled programming. But Louis Varland settled down and pitched a really great game after that. His only mistake was a home run to Giancarlo Stanton, which happens to the best of us. And Varland gave 6 innings for a guy who's making a spot start. So he's pitching in place of Kenta Maeda. Now, Tyler Mahle was originally going to get the ball to start. They pushed him back a day, skipping Kenta's start. Kenta said post-game, nothing too crazy to worry about. Arm's just sore. Throwing really hard, throwing a lot of pitches. It's not quite the same as spring training. Just need an extra, just skip my turn in the rotation, and I'll be fine to pitch next week. Which, fair. Kenta Maeda is coming off Tommy John surgery. He hasn't pitched competitively since 2021. And by the way, the Twins have Varland and Ober sitting in AAA ready to make these spot starts. And by the way, Louis Varland had his MLB debut last year against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, his first start of 2023 in the Bronx. Pitches well in both of those starts. And really, that's where the Twins can flex their depth a little bit. I mean, I think that's become a buzzword, flexing their depth, and we'll get to that in a second with the injuries that have piled up on the Twins. But good job by Varland to come in and get that win in a spot start. Kenta Maeda is going to be fine. Tyler Mahle gets the ball tomorrow. And the one nitpick I do have with this Twins rotation has to probably be the home runs. If you look as a whole, and I'll look up this exact stat here in a second, but anecdotally, it feels like this Twins pitching staff gives up a lot of home runs. And I'm trying to look on Baseball Savant here. I think the Twins, overall as a pitching staff, have given up 13 home runs on the season. So maybe it's not the end of the world, but it really does feel like the only way the Twins pitching is getting scored on is if it's home runs. And look at Pablo Lopez in his last couple starts, it was the long ball. You look at Duran in the outing where he gave up the lead to Robert because he hit the home run. And the Twins have given up the long ball a little bit. That's the one nitpick you can have. But still, if they've played 14 games and they've given up 13 home runs, it averages out to one, little under one home run per 9 innings, which I'm sure isn't disastrous by any standards, but also at the same time, there's one area to nitpick is that when Twins pitching does get hit, they are able to take it into the seats. You saw it with Tyler Mahle as well on Sunday in his start against Houston. Pitched overall fine, 6 innings, 4 runs. Not great by his standards, but at the same time kept the Twins theoretically in the ball game, but did give up a 3-run home run. Joe Ryan gave up a home run to Anthony Rizzo yesterday in his start at Yankee Stadium. The start before in Houston gave up a grand slam, so that's a little bit of a nitpick on the Twins rotation. But overall, I mean, that's whatever. It's baseball in 2023. The long ball is just going to be a part of things, but it's like in the NFL, every once in a while your team is just going to get gashed for a big play over the top because some wide receivers are just really great and they're going to do their thing anyways, and offenses are, whatever. That's just the way that the league is trending towards. So am I losing sleep over the amount of home runs? No, but it is a number that we're going to monitor. Does it kind of stabilize? Does it go up? And again, part of it is we're still in April, and offense generally is always down in April. You're playing in typically cold weather environments throughout most of the places you play. I mean, the Twins played in Miami. I think that's about the only spot that hasn't been impacted at all. Kansas City, a little chilly. New York, a little chilly. Minnesota. I mean, a warm weekend last week, but overall, it's not quite summertime. The ball's not flying out of the yard. Hitters aren't quite comfortable and quote unquote locked in yet as they are midway through the season. But the Twins pitching is still taking advantage of that. They have the second best ERA in all of baseball behind the Tampa Bay Rays, and they average the most innings per start of any team in baseball, which is like about 5 2/3, which doesn't seem high, but again, baseball in 2023, that's how things are. And you heard me on the podcast last year, and I talked about Sonny Gray wanting to start more or pitch longer in games, get more innings, and Joe Ryan get more innings. And you heard me, I had a whole podcast where I vented last year about Joe Ryan getting taken out when there was a no-hitter on the line. And again, part of it's the frustration of, you're in a playoff chase, you see the bullpen get roughed up, you see everything, and I think now that we've kind of taken ourselves away from the emotion, and I think I fairly did a good job of saying, like, the Twins pitching's not good. There's really not much you can do. At the same time, when you get into the emotions of the middle of the season and a collapse, and there's just all this pent-up frustration you feel like you have to take out on something, I mean, it's really easy to get sucked into. Why are they not just letting the pitchers pitch more? Are the Twins trying to reinvent the wheel? Are they trying to outsmart themselves? No, the pitching just wasn't good last year, wasn't good at all. And now that we see the Twins have 5, and you saw Varland come in and pitch well, 6, and if you include Bailey Ober, 7 competent major league starters at their disposal, and a bullpen, by the way, with the top end, when you look at guys like Jax and Duran and Jorge Lopez and Caleb Thielbar, great. And even Emilio Pagan came in and pitched a scoreless inning for the Twins. When that happens, things are going well. So it's just been overall a great unit. And not only that, we've talked about the pitching staff for the starters being great and putting the Twins in good positions to win. And not only that, it puts the bullpen in an even better position to succeed. So you have Jax and Alcala and Lopez and Duran and Thielbar. You have 5 and, Pagan and Moran. You have these 7 guys who you can use, and Cole Sands in the mix, but he just got sent down. But you have all these guys in the mix, and you can space them out a little bit. Duran doesn't have to pitch every day, or you don't have to be worried about Duran pitching in back-to-back days as often. You don't have to worry about burning up Griffin Jax, because then that he's only has to pitch 1 inning. And again, the Twins last year wanted to go 5 innings. Then that means the starters had to pitch 6, 7, 8, 9 every single night. And you're just burning through bullpen guys. And not only the Twins had those top end bullpen guys in Duran and Thielbar and Jax last year. Now Jorge Lopez bouncing back is good. Jorge Alcala being in the mix. It takes it to another level. But you're just able to play with things a lot more. And I've said this before, so I don't want to beat the dead horse, but it's just really good to see this Twins pitching succeeding, putting the Twins in a good position. They're 10-4, not because of the offense. The Twins are like in the bottom third of baseball in terms of overall run production, but the Twins pitching staff has made it so it doesn't really matter. The Twins have only scored 9 runs or more, I think 3 times this season throughout the first 14 games. And they've really been kind of smaller since. They're not average. I don't know the right way to word this, but you know what I mean? It's a lot of low scoring wins for the Twins this season. And it's been because of the starting pitching is why they're able to win those games. The 2022 Twins don't win all of those games. And this is where 2023 is so exciting because you can see the starters going longer into games. Not only is it more pleasing just from a fan perspective typically, but also you get to really utilize those bullpen guys because that's the whole point of a bullpen is they're fresh arms. They can be used in short bursts, and being able to use them less means that they're more effective when they come in, and it's less pressure on the bullpen to have to be perfect every single game. Or if one guy is up, if Griffin Jackson's having a bad couple weeks, you can lean on him less and lean on Jorge Lopez more, or lean on Alcala more, or lean on Duran more, or lean on Thielbar more. You can share a little bit of the success and distribute that workload. And it works out better. Funny thing, when you have good players, everybody feels like there's less pressure on them. The starting rotation, Sonny Gray said it over the weekend after that Houston series, after he had 13 starts 13 strikeouts in his start for the home opener against Houston. And he just said, hey man, like I know that I can come out there and pitch well. And even if I don't, there's no pressure because Joe Ryan's next and Pablo Lopez pitched before me and Maeda and Malley are in the mix. And now Varland getting a start today. The Twins pitching staff has just been so good. And it's still a small sample size overall. We're only 14 games into a 162 game marathon. But in the words of Palpatine in episode 1, it's a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Pretty much for the Twins pitching through the first couple weeks of the season. So it's been really, really fun to watch that develop and to see it because we talked about it all offseason. Theoretically, the Twins have a good staff, but how good can Pablo Lopez be? Can Kenta Maeda come back? How healthy will Sonny Gray be? Can Joe Ryan take that next step? Is Tyler Malley healthy? Can Louis Varland and Bailey Ober work into the mix at all? And how will they pitch and rebound off of, Louis Varland only getting a handful of major league starts last year and Ober missing because of injury? Ober is yet to get up with the Twins. I'm guessing the reason Varland got called up is probably just timing. I don't know when Ober's last start in the rotation was. But either way, Louis Varland's the 2-time minor league pitcher of the year with the Twins anyways. So there is talent there. But really this is fun. This Twins team is fun to watch. The starting staff is dominant. You have bullpen guys like Duran who are just fun to watch in general. It's awesome. It's awesome baseball to get to watch. So I think that's pretty much my main takeaway was Varland, but then just kind of got into this broader discussion about the Twins pitching staff more generally. When you look at Carlos Correa today, he had his signature Twins moment. Now there's been this conversation of Carlos Correa is not clutch, and last year he wasn't, but overall in his career, Carlos Correa is generally a guy who comes up in crunch time. Now, when you're with the Houston Astros and you have a good baseball team, things work out a little bit better for you. Obviously, the quality of baseball last year for Correa, not quite the same. But this year, and that's not an excuse for him, but it's kind of leveling the playing field a little bit. This year, another slow start with Correa. And I had people tell me, they're like, is he hurt? Is this the reason why the contracts and everything fell through? And oh my gosh, did the Twins buy damaged goods? And no, Carlos Correa is fine. And you know what? The dude owns Yankee Stadium. Yesterday had a home run. He had 2 hits overall in that game. And then you look in tonight's game against the New York Yankees where the Twins won 4-3. Carlos Correa had 3 RBIs. He had a home run earlier in the game to get the Twins on the board. A Yankee Stadium home run, if I've ever seen one, 331 feet. There's high school ballparks where that hits off the wall. Yankee Stadium's a joke, but that's besides the point. We'll take it. Carlos Correa gets a home run off the short porch. And then later in the ball game, 2 on, nobody out. Carlos Correa comes in the ball game, hits a 2-run double down the line in right field, and then that's where you see the ability of Carlos Correa. He is able to hit to all different fields. He's just been there before. He's a pro's pro. He's been to 3 World Series in his career, has 1 ring, and is just overall a really great baseball player, and good baseball players make winning plays. Carlos Correa's been making winning plays in the field all season long, but to see him get to this point and make that true winning play that gets the Twins a win. 3 of the 4 runs were because of Carlos Correa driving them in. Now he got thrown out at second base in a wonky base running play. So base running still is, again, if you're going to nitpick the Twins, base running still hasn't been great, not just in terms of stolen bases, but just in terms of running the base paths. It hasn't been as spectacular, maybe as the Twins tried to push out there with bringing Paul Molitor back and bringing whatever. And it just goes down to the Twins are slow. More than anything, they don't have a ton of speed outside of Taylor and Gordon, who don't have blazing speed, but have decent speed. Then you have Byron Buxton, Max Kepler's in the mix a little bit there. But either way, Carlos Correa had his signature Twins moment. I think it's safe to say that in terms of the clutch of Carlos Correa, this is probably his best game as a Twin, with his late inning production and ability to put the Twins ahead and win them the game. So the last thing with the Twins is 2 wins at Yankee Stadium. You get a come from behind win today, and it was really, really awesome just to get to see the Twins finally come through at Yankee Stadium. I think Dick Bramer mentioned on the broadcast, he walked out of the hallway in the press box, Paul O'Neill, who does a famous Yankee Hall of Famer, all that good stuff. He meets Bramer in the hallway and he says, "You guys stole one from us." And Bramer says, "Well, on the other hand, I think we've gotten a lot of ball games stolen from us, talking about the Twins in Yankee Stadium," which is correct. So feel no sympathy towards that. And it's great because now you're playing with house money. You're already splitting the series. You've already had a winning week. Now, you had to use Duran and Lopez today, but Griffin Jax is still available. Jorge Alcala is still available. And because nobody really pitched yesterday, you have that ability to go and maybe use Duran one more time in this series, maybe use maybe use Lopez one more time. But for sure, you have Jackson, Theobar, Alcala, all available to pitch tomorrow. Tyler Mahle on the bump, and Pablo Lopez versus Garrett Cole on Sunday is going to be really, really fun to watch. So that's kind of the takeaways from this Yankees series. It's really good because not only that, the Twins also took 2 out of 3 from the Astros. Now, that win on Friday was a little fluky with the sun bouncing off the Minnie and Paul, the new Minnie and Paul logo, by the way, at Target Field. And Martin Maldonado, who's one of the best fielding catchers in baseball, just missed a bunch of baseballs because that thing was blinding him. And Morneau mentioned on the TV broadcast that Mauer would say all the time, when you're in that like 3 o'clock range or like that 3 to 5 p.m. area, it starts when the sun bounces off there, it starts to get a little weird. And we saw that, and it helped the Twins. They got the win against the Astros. They took 2 out of 3 in the series. I got to go to the game on Saturday where to see Buxton crush a home run. And by the way, watching Byron Buxton on TV is great. Buxton bombs are better in person. The ball just jumps off his bat. I mean, you can tell that from watching on TV, but to get to see it in person is unreal. And the stadium lit up. And I know that the weather was really great last weekend, and it was the opening weekend, and it's the Astros, and there's some new things at Target Field that they want to show off. But I really thought the fan presence in that opening series against Houston was really fun. Now, it wasn't as great against the White Sox, but it's a lot of day games in the middle of the week in April, so kids are still in school. Everybody's still at work. Nobody's quite ready to take off time yet to go watch a ball game. But I thought it was a great environment for baseball, and for the Twins to start out 10-4, and if they can keep this momentum going, I mean, they're going to be some really fun crowds at Target Field. And that's another fun thing. 2019 was probably, I was at a game in 2010 where the Twins were good. They won the division. It was the first year at Target Field. Every game was a sellout. It was really, really fun. That was a fun atmosphere. But to come back in 2019, after years of coming to the ballpark when the Twins were white hot garbage, 2019, to see that crowd again was fun. It was loud throughout the ball game. It was like there were close games. It was people talk all the time, why won't fans come to Target Field? See a good product on the field and fans show up. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the Twins. this year. And I think the Twins did not have a great year attendance wise in 2022. This year will be much better, much better. That's my bold prediction here. Going to get a lot of people going to Target Field this summer. But for the Twins to win 2 out of 3 against Houston, and for now, they took 2 out of 3 against the White Sox top 3 pitchers, and now they've at least split a series in New York. And that's the thing. The White Sox aren't a huge test. They're struggling to begin the year. But to get 2 out of 3 against the Astros, who also, they don't have Jose Altuve. Michael Brantley's hurt. They're not last year's Houston Astros by any stretch, but they're still good. They're still a good ball club. They're still Yordan Alvarez. They're still Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker. And for the Twins to win 2 out of 3, and for the most part, keep that lineup in check, that's a win. And for them to have a good series against Chicago, that's good. But now to come into Yankee Stadium and at least earn a split, it shows that, and by the way, in Yankee Stadium, it shows that the Twins are proving a little bit that they're right. Their 10-4 record is correct. Last year the Twins had a good April and a decent May, and a lot of people looked at the run differential of the Twins last season at the time, which was negative or at least close to 0, and looked at the way they were winning games and the teams they were doing it against and said, I had people tell me last year, early in the season, I don't know if I'm ready to jump on this Twins bandwagon. And as the season collapsed, they came back and were like, yeah, you could see it early in the year. It was a little fluky-ish. Things came back down to, you regress to the mean. But now this Twins team doesn't quite look like that. Maybe the pitching takes a step back as the year goes on, but you hope then that the lineup takes a step up and balances things out. This Twins team is for real. They're legit, and they're proving that not just to themselves and to the fan base, but to baseball in general, beating 2 out of 3 against Houston, winning the first 2 games against the Yankees, a 10-4 record, the second best in baseball throughout the first 2 weeks. And it's Twins baseball, man. It's fun. It's fun to see this all come back and come to fruition. So there's a couple different kind of news and notes. Now we've kind of caught ourselves back up with my thoughts on the games. And again, try not to ride or die with every single game here because it's a long season and, it's early in the season. So we focus very heavily on all these games when a month from now, who knows? I mean, we'll remember these 2 games against the Yankees, but how much will we remember that the Twins took 2 out of 3 against the White Sox in that in that midweek series back at Target Field? I don't know, but a couple news and notes. One, injuries starting to pile up for the Twins, just a little bit on the hitting side. Of course, Max Kepler got put on the IL. Matt Wallner got called up. No, some people wanted Ed Julien to get the call, but when it just made sense. Left-handed hitting corner outfielder Matt Wallner fit the bill, and then you could keep Gallo at first base and everything works out. Well, now Gallo, Max Kepler had the knee soreness. He's going to be out, and he could technically come back at the end of this Yankee series, but I mean, I'm going to guess the Twins aren't in a hurry to get Kepler back here. And if you're Kepler, maybe the Twins just say, you take your time, you get healthy, you do what you need to do, and not going to rush him back, considering that they're holding down the fort without Max Kepler right now. And then Joey Gallo, who had a nice start to the season, 3 home runs, was getting his hits. And then all of a sudden in that first home game came out with a rib injury. And now he is on the 10-day IL as well. That opened up a spot for Ed Julien to get his big league call up as well. And I have an article for Zone Coverage. I talk about who Ed Julien is, and we've talked about him a little bit throughout spring training in our, prospect not really a prospect ranking, but just talking about the Twins' top prospects, the positional rankings, kind of going position by position. Where does everybody fit in? Now, I thought originally Ed Julien, who's a second baseman, first baseman, can play those 2 positions. Not a great defender. He's more known for his bat, has powered all fields, and got his first big league hit and home run in the same inning in 2 different at-bats in Yankee Stadium yesterday. So it was really fun to see Julien do that. He's a baseball pedigree guy. Played baseball for junior teams in Canada on their national team, went to Auburn to play baseball, and was a part of a College World Series team. He broke Frank Thomas's record for most RBIs as a freshman. Yeah, that Frank Thomas, who played for the White Sox and the A's and the Blue Jays and all that. So he's a guy who's played a lot of baseball, played baseball at a high level. And even he didn't play minor leagues in 2019 because he was rehabbing from Tommy John, and in 2020 because of COVID, but he still played baseball on the national stage in the World Baseball Classic. This is a guy who has seen a lot of baseball and came to the Twins spring training facility early, because he was in Canada. So he's like, screw it, I'm going to go to Florida and get ready for the season. And he was just locked in and ready to go. And you've seen that. He had a couple, his first 4 games for St. Paul were slow, and then he turned it around and was just hitting the ball. And, he had a walk in the first game, otherwise didn't get a hit against the White Sox, started at second base. And then he got the start at second, leading off, which is where I think Ed Julien is going to make the bulk of his at-bats as a leadoff hitter. Now, he didn't lead off today, but that's because Cortez is a lefty. The Twins tried to space out their left-handed hitters throughout the lineup. But Julien's going to get a lot of play as a leadoff hitter for the Twins, and it's something they need. And that gets to my point about Ed Julien. His call-up comes at the right time because the Twins need a first baseman, they need a second baseman, they need a lefty, they need a leadoff guy at the top of the order. They just need all of these things, and he just fits the bill. Now, he's not a great defender, and I thought originally he was going to get time at first base, and then Gordon and Farmer can platoon, and then Farmer took a pitch to the face, and that kind of put a damper on that theory. So Farmer goes to the IL, and getting called up is Kyle Garlick, who, by the way, did his patented I only hit home runs against lefties, and Garlick mashed out to left field in today's win. But Ed Julien is a guy who I thought would profile more as a first baseman, but the Twins have Donovan Solano there, and he's had a really nice start to the season. Now, I didn't know who the heck Donovan Solano was before the Twins signed him, as I'm sure 95% of the Twins fan base had no idea who Donovan Solano was. But old Donnie Barrels, great nickname, by the way, playing really well and a good addition. So that meant that Ed Julien probably going to get time at second base, and especially with Kyle Farmer out, it means that you can push Nick Gordon to maybe help out with those corner outfield spots. So you have Larnach, and maybe Gordon plays a little more left field. Larnach moves over to right field, or maybe Garlick's in that mix. And so I think Gordon can go back to being that corner outfielder. And if you move Julien at second base, which is pretty much the only position he can play outside of first, that works out. And maybe if there's a day where you're facing a righty and Donovan Solano, you don't think quite as the best matchup, you could put him at first, or to give Solano an off day. Because outside of that, I think Miranda can play a little bit of first, but the Twins he hasn't played first base yet in the first 15 games. So the Twins aren't in a big hurry to put Miranda over there, because then you got to find somebody to play third. And the Twins really don't have a guy who could play third. That was supposed to be Farmer. Well, he's out of commission for a while. Thank goodness, by the way. Farmer could have broken his jaw, instead broke some teeth and had a big laceration on the lip. But outside of that, I mean, as bad of a situation as that is, it probably is the best case scenario for Farmer. He's still going to be out for a while, though, as he tries to get right. Obviously, no intention by the White Sox of throwing at him there, and no intention of Buxton, who collided with I can't remember the guy's name, the second baseman for the White Sox, but collides into him. Obviously, it was interference by Buxton. Now, I put out a tweet trying to be sarcastic, like, oh, the White Sox are throwing at Farmer and running into Buxton, with like some mad face emojis. My cue on Twitter, by the way, the more emojis I post in a tweet, the less serious you should take it. I really don't take myself that seriously on Twitter. So please, if you follow me at BombCJ30 on Twitter, it's all giggles, man. I have no intentions of being a very whatever. It's Twitter. I think we take Twitter and social media in general way too seriously as it is. Now, there are some Twins fans out there who took some heat for saying what I said in a serious way. And that's not quite what I'm trying to do. That was not, so whatever. Don't read too much into that. Cause I had some people comment being like, well, it was Buxton's fault. What are you talking about? You're wrong. I'm like, I didn't put it some out there. This was sarcasm. Cause then it always turns out to make it seem like you're trying to backfill, you're trying to backpedal. But anyway, so Julien probably going to play more as a second baseman, and I think he comes up to the Twins at the right time, and especially with all these injuries stacking up of Gallo and Kepler and now Farmer going on, all three are on the IL. And for a second there, it looked like Correa and Buxton might have, because Correa missed, I think, that entire White Sox series. But he comes back and plays really well in his first 2 games. Byron Buxton, who slid as the go-ahead run into home plate, looked like he'd land, like just boom, landed on his shoulder. Like he slid and he just kind of whiplashed himself on the upper back. Byron Buxton, my guy, one of the most athletic people I've ever seen in my entire life. Just looks like he goes, and again, it's not a character flaw of him. He's a guy who has a bunch of intensity, a bunch of heart, hustle, all that good stuff. It's just a little, not uncoordinated, but just feels like he's going too fast for his own good, and that's why he hurts himself sometimes. Not saying that's going to hurt him. He seems fine, but just kind of funny in general with that. But Buxton came back and played after that collision and played well in the Twins win yesterday and today. Correa came back, which is a big sign. And again, everybody liked to say, oh, and myself included, had that gut level feeling of great. We hyped up the Twins depth and they're all going to get hurt and we're still going to be playing a quadruple A lineup throughout the season. But for now, 15 games in, 14 games in, the depth works because instead of Celestino, or instead of Kyle Garlick being the first call up, Kyle Garlick was like the third or fourth call up for the Twins this season. And last year he was on the big league roster right away. Or you don't have Ryan Lamar, who, like Ryan Lamar, he ain't it, Chief. Like Rob Refsnyder, you don't have those guys coming up and trying to fill for 2 weeks or possibly more. You don't have Nick Gordon starting in center field. And Michael A. Taylor, by the way, really coming on. He had a nice week over the last few days, especially lifting up that Twins offense, especially through the long ball. He's having a nice start in a Twins uniform as well. So injuries piling up a little bit for the Twins, but that depth has at least kept it at bay for now. If the injuries keep piling up, then we're right back to where we were last season. But for now, it's good. Gallo and Kepler's injuries don't seem to be season-ending by any stretch. We'll have to monitor that. Jorge Polanco, speaking of injuries, by the way, and Alex Kirilloff are in Fort Myers doing rehab right now. I think both of them went 1 for 3 in their debuts. It's a welcome sign to see that both of them are on the field playing. Now you just got to decide, do they stay down in Fort Myers because it's the official Twins facility down there? There's a lot of staff. There's a big facilities, weight rooms, all that kind of stuff, training rooms to keep them healthy and monitor them? Or is it better to move them up through the minor leagues in double or triple A and get the more competitive at-bats to see how they rate against them? I don't know, but having Jorge Polanco come back into this Twins lineup, and Julien finding some kind of role. If you have Polanco in that lineup, adds a good lefty bat. Kirilloff may be working his way back into the rotation of guys playing. But again, the Twins are in a good spot because if you can get Kirilloff and Polanco back healthy, it adds to the overall depth of the lineup. And, who comes in off the bench, who comes in the middle of a game as a defensive substitution, who, you're playing this certain pitcher. How can we manipulate the lineup card today? And overall, the Twins, they're a good team right now, and they have the capability to be better if they can get Polanco back and healthy, and if they can get Kirilloff back, and maybe at some point Brooks Lee makes his debut, maybe past the All-Star break, Royce Lewis comes back healthy. There's so many different things with this Twins team that you can talk about, and it's just fun. I hope that you can tell with this through the podcast. I've had a couple podcasts already through the season, but I think you're starting to see it come together. It's been a nice couple weeks, and this momentum is slowly building of this is going to be a fun season of Twins baseball. And of course, there's still plenty more games to go, but this is a great spot. We talked about in the first month of that season, you don't want to sink yourself. If you start 500 or maybe a couple games below, it's not ideal, but you'll take it. You'll take kind of just hanging around and waiting for your team to get hot and make a run. The Twins are hot early in the season, which puts them in a good spot because it means that if they have a bad stretch in May, you don't go from a 500 team with a bad stretch that could sink your season before June. And now at least like in 2021, the Twins season was over before you even got to the official start of summer. And now you have them in position to have a really fun season if everything comes together. The way the pitching staff is, the lineup, if they can get hot at all, would be a welcome sign. It's just great. It's just just great. A lot of fun Twins baseball. A couple other notes I just want to point out. Jose Miranda really having a rough go of it to start the season, but I think he'll be okay. He's hitting baseballs hard. If you look at, Baseball Savant and you look at Fangraphs, if you see the way he's hitting the baseball, he's getting solid contact, but he's just not finding the right places to go with it, or it's just not quite working out. Now, as we talked about with Max Kepler, it's all theoretical. It's not saying that he will turn it around. It's saying that like the underlying process seems good. The results just quite aren't showing themselves up yet. Where with Max Kepler, it's like a little different. But anyway, that's my thing about Miranda. And the catching with Vasquez and with Jeffers, they might be the best hitting battery for catchers in baseball. Jeffers' defense is still a little bit to be desired in terms of throwing out runners, but Vasquez is really good at throwing out runners. Vasquez is a great framer. Jeffers is a great framer as well, but Vasquez is a good framer, knows how to call the game. I know Correa took a lot of headlines and then Pablo Lopez, but Christian Vasquez is just as important of an addition as Correa and Lopez and some of these other offseason signings. It's a really good pickup because it relegates Jeffers to a smaller role, but it means that when he plays, he's rested, he can focus, it gives him more time to work on that stuff. And Jeffers is, at least from a hitting perspective, had a really nice start to the season. It's been really good. There's not a ton of nitpicks with this Twins team. The offense can be a little streaky. The pitching staff maybe gives up a little bit too many home runs for my liking. But outside of that, it's about as good of a start as you could have hoped for the Twins. So more podcasts to come after this series. The Twins have an off day. We'll plan to get a podcast out early next week, recapping the series in New York, and we'll have that ready to go. Otherwise, follow Bombs Away at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube for all of our stuff. And of course, you can listen to the full podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please give us a 5-star rating, like us on Twitter, like us on YouTube, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Really helps out the page. I appreciate all you guys. It's been fun. Let's keep talking Twins baseball.